Morning light filters through a cracked window, illuminating a cluttered workbench coated in grease and dust. The faint hum of an old radio fills the silence of a forgotten garage where Eli fights another day of survival. Every turn of the wrench is a quiet rebellion against despair. Rent's overdue. The fridge is half empty. And his daughter's shoes have holes. But he keeps going, because quitting isn't an option. Outside, the world races ahead, indifferent to men like him. Yet beneath the grime and the exhaustion lies a spark, an idea that refuses to die, even when everything else has. This is where his journey begins, not with applause, but with silence, and the sound of something breaking that he refuses to leave broken. Outside the garage, the morning is alive with movement. Cars speeding, people shouting, life happening everywhere but here. Eli steps out, wiping his hands, watching neighbors head to jobs he can't get. He thinks of the factory that closed, the promises that vanished, the degrees he never earned. The world calls him a failure, but they don't see the nights spent teaching himself circuits by flashlight, the notebooks filled with equations he barely understood until he did. As he locks the garage, he whispers to Lila to hurry for school, his tone soft but worn. The day stretches before him like a mountain he's climbed 100 times. Each time, a little higher. Across the city, glass towers gleam like monuments to power. Inside one, Clara Vaughn stands before a massive window, her reflection merging with the skyline she built from ambition and precision. Yet behind her, chaos brews. A project gone wrong. A billion-dollar machine that won't work. 10 of her top engineers failed. Their reputations on the line. Clara doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Silence from her is the loudest punishment. But deep down, something stirs, a whisper of self-doubt she hasn't felt in years. For the first time, she wonders if the empire she built on control might be slipping from her grasp. Back at the garage, Eli stares at a rejected job application crumpled in his hand. His bank account shows a number too small to feed hope. Still, he turns back to the blueprint on the wall. He knows he's close, so close, to something that could change everything. His mind races, his heart pounds. He connects wires, rearranges parts, muttering to himself like a man possessed. Every spark from his tools is a rebellion against the world's indifference. He doesn't know that miles away, a desperate CEO is about to need exactly what he's building. The night is still except for the soft hum of a motor. Eli tests a prototype. His hands steady, his breath shallow. The machine flickers, sputters, and then powers off. He sighs, head dropping into his hands. Lila's voice calls from the doorway, sleepy and gentle, telling him not to give up. Her words linger, echoing louder than failure. Eli looks at her and forces a smile, whispering that one day, this will all make sense. The lights dim. The camera lingers on the broken device, and for the first time, we see it. The faint glow of a core that refuses to die. Morning breaks with the sound of rain hammering on the roof of the garage. Eli works through the storm, trying to repair a generator for a local client, unaware that destiny is already moving toward him. Across town, Clara's team faces catastrophe. Their prototype for the clean energy module has failed once again. The 10th attempt. The 10th humiliation. Investors are threatening to walk away, and deadlines are closing in like prison bars. Desperation makes the unthinkable possible. One of her engineers, in a last-ditch attempt to salvage parts, places an emergency order for components from an unknown small-town mechanic, Eli Carter. Two worlds are about to collide, not by design, but by fate. Hours later, a sleek, black delivery van stops outside Eli's garage. Inside, a uniformed courier hands him a damaged energy unit for repair. A part he doesn't recognize, stamped with the logo of Vaughn Energy Systems. The instructions are vague, technical beyond reason. Eli hesitates, but curiosity wins. He disassembles it carefully, studying every component like a puzzle waiting to confess its secrets. Something inside him stirs. This is no ordinary machine. He can see where the design went wrong, where logic clashed with intuition. And for the first time in years, he feels alive, not as a mechanic, but as an inventor again. At Vaughn Energy headquarters, the boardroom is chaos. 10 engineers argue in frustration as graphs flicker red on the digital display. Clara listens in silence, her jaw tightening with each failed explanation. 10 of you, she finally says, voice steady but cold, and not one solution. The room falls silent. A junior engineer, nervous and drenched in guilt, confesses that one of the components was sent out for third-party repair. Clara's eyes narrow. Unauthorized action is her greatest sin. But when she demands to know where it went, the name means nothing to her. Carter's garage. The engineer, Clara's silence deepens, the storm outside it echoing her unease. Night falls as Eli continues examining the device, the hum of rain outside blending with the buzz of his soldering iron. He discovers the flaw, a misalignment in the magnetic coil that none of the experts had considered. His hands move instinctively, guided not by textbook knowledge but by years of listening to machines like they were alive. He adjusts the angle, reconnects a wire, and reseals the unit. The lights flicker, and then the impossible happens. The module activates, humming with clean, stable energy. Eli steps back, stunned. His breath catches in disbelief as soft blue light fills the garage, painting him in the glow of a destiny he never imagined. The next morning, Eli delivers the repaired module to the address on the invoice, unaware that it's destined for one of the most powerful companies in the country. The receptionist barely looks at him as he signs the delivery slip, his name scrawled beside polished marble and designer glass. He leaves quietly, his hands still faintly trembling from the night before. Minutes later, the repaired module is tested, and for the first time, it works flawlessly. A murmur of disbelief fills the lab. Clara rushes in, eyes fixed on the data streaming across the screen. "Who fixed this?" she demands. No one answers. A name is all she gets: E. Carter. And in that moment, curiosity replaces anger. 2 days later, Eli's phone buzzes while he's fixing a carburetor. The voice on the other end is sharp, professional, and entirely out of place in his world. "Mr. Carter, this is Vaughn Energy Systems. Miss Vaughn would like to meet you." Eli freezes, unsure whether to laugh or hang up. But when a sleek black car arrives an hour later, his disbelief turns to nervous awe. Lila hugs him tightly, whispering, "Maybe they'll finally see what you can do." The drive feels endless. Glass towers rise like monuments to everything he's never had. And somewhere inside that shining labyrinth, his destiny waits. Not with kindness, but with scrutiny. Inside Vaughn Energy's headquarters, everything gleams. Polished floors, glass walls, and a silence that hums with money. Eli walks through the corridor, the sound of his boots echoing too loudly. The receptionist eyes his calloused hands, unsure what to make of him. Then the elevator doors open. Clara stands waiting, poised like a statue carved from confidence. Their eyes meet, hers calculating, his uncertain. She gestures toward the lab without a word. Inside, 10 engineers surround a holographic projection, their gazes sharp with disbelief. To them, he's an intruder. To Clara, he's an anomaly. "Show me how you did it," she finally says, voice like glass. Eli swallows hard. The test begins. The room hums as Eli steps closer to the module, his fingers tracing its edge with reverence. He begins to speak, not like an academic, but like a man who's lived with machines long enough to understand their moods. His explanation is rough, unpolished, but sharp in its truth. The engineers exchange skeptical glances until one of them attempts to correct him. Eli pauses, listens, then rewires a segment before anyone can stop him. The module stabilizes instantly. The screen flashes green. Silence fills the room. Even Clara's breath catches, just for a moment. Then, as if unwilling to concede, she mutters, "Coincidence?" Eli looks up. "Or maybe," he replies softly, You've been listening to the wrong kind of experts. After the demonstration, Clara invites Eli to her office, a space as pristine as it is unwelcoming. She circles him verbally, probing his background, his education, his methods. Each question feels like a blade wrapped in silk. Eli answers honestly with humility and quiet defiance. No degree, he admits. Just a lot of nights fixing things no one else cared to. Clara studies him for a long moment, her facade almost cracking. There's something she recognizes in him, something she lost years ago: conviction. Finally, she leans back. "You have no idea what you've just walked into," she says. Eli smiles faintly. "I never do, but I fix things when they're broken." Later that night, Eli returns home to find Lila asleep at the table, a half-eaten sandwich beside her. He lifts her gently, carrying her to bed as the city lights shimmer through the window. He sits for a long while, staring at his grease-stained hands. In one day, he crossed a line he never thought possible, from a forgotten mechanic to the man who might save an empire. But with opportunity comes danger. And deep down, he knows that the world he's stepping into isn't built for people like him. Still, as Lila stirs in her sleep and whispers his name, he smiles softly. Tomorrow, he'll go back, because for the first time, someone powerful is finally listening. Dem dem age, visual staged, that's your Earthward the wide, do cloud TV. Days blur into nights inside the Vaughn Energy Lab. Eli works alone, surrounded by schematics and murmurs of disbelief. The engineers keep their distance, some amused, others threatened. He barely eats, barely sleeps, each spark, each adjustment pulling him closer to the impossible. Clara watches from afar, her curiosity shifting to admiration she won't admit. The prototype begins to hum with life, the air thick with tension and ozone. For Eli, it's not about fame or fortune. It's about proving that brilliance doesn't need permission. His hands tremble as he connects the final wire. A surge of blue light erupts, steady, powerful, pure. For one breathless second, time stops. He's done it. The next morning, word spreads through the company like wildfire. The impossible has been achieved. But the whispers that follow tell a different story, one where Ellie's name is absent. The engineers rush to finalize documentation, presenting their collective breakthrough to Clara before he even arrives. When Eli steps into the lab, he finds them celebrating around his creation, champagne glasses in hand. Confusion replaces pride. "You did it," one engineer says with a forced smile. "We couldn't have done it without your help." Eli's stomach twists. He doesn't speak. He just watches as his life's work becomes a trophy for someone else's career. When Clara enters, the room goes silent. The engineers straighten their posture, eager for her approval. She examines the data. The reading's perfect, flawless. Yet something feels wrong. Eli's face tells the story she doesn't want to hear. One of the lead engineers steps forward, rehearsed words tumbling out about teamwork and innovation. Clara listens, expression unreadable. Her gaze shifts toward Eli, who stands with his hands clenched, jaw tight. She knows. He knows. He knows she knows. But neither speaks. "Excellent work," she says finally, her tone detached. The words cut deeper than any insult. Eli leaves without a word, the hum of the machine echoing behind him like betrayal-given sound. Rain falls again as Eli walks home through the city streets, soaked but numb. Neon lights blur in the puddles at his feet, blending with the ache in his chest. He replays the moment over and over. The silence, the stolen credit, the way Clara didn't speak. He tells himself it doesn't matter, but it does. He wanted to believe that if you gave the world your best, it would notice. Instead, it took everything and left him with nothing but questions. When he reaches the garage, Lila runs to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Did it work, Daddy?" she asks softly. He forces a smile and nods. It worked. But inside, something breaks. Later that night, Clara sits alone in her office, the city sprawling beneath her like a kingdom she no longer recognizes. The success report glows on her tablet. Her company saved, her reputation intact. But her chest feels hollow. She replays the footage of the prototype test, pausing on Ely's face just before the light flared. The raw determination in his eyes unsettles her. For the first time in years, she questions the cost of her ambition. Outside, thunder rolls through the night. She closes her laptop, the screen reflecting a single tear before it goes dark. In the silence that follows, she whispers to no one, "What have I done?" A week passes. The news declares Vaughn Energy's breakthrough as the innovation of the decade. Headlines show Clara standing beside her team, smiling for cameras, the module gleaming behind them. Ely watches from a small TV in his garage, the static blurring her face. His invention, his nights of hunger and hope, claimed by others. But bitterness isn't what he feels most. It's loss, not of money or recognition, but of trust. Lila notices his silence and climbs onto his lap. "It's okay, Daddy," she whispers. "You still fixed it." Ely smiles faintly, holding her close. Maybe the world will never know his name, but maybe that's not what matters. Meanwhile, Clara's victory feels hollow. Every congratulatory email, every handshake, echoes like an accusation. She finds herself avoiding her reflection, haunted by the memory of Eli's silence as he left the lab. At a gala that night, she stands before hundreds of investors, the applause loud but meaningless. In the middle of her speech, she hesitates. The words feel false, heavy with someone else's truth. Afterward, she steps outside into the cool night air, removing her heels, staring out at the skyline. The city lights shimmer below like the pulse of something alive, and she realizes for the first time that she's built her success on the bones of others' dreams. Back home, Ely works on a smaller version of the module, an idea meant not for corporations, but for people. Lila films him quietly with her old tablet, giggling when sparks fly. "For the internet," she says. Ely laughs, shaking his head. He didn't realize she uploads the video that night with the title, "My Dad Can Fix Anything." By morning, millions have watched it. The comments flood in. Engineers, journalists, people from all walks of life amazed by the simplicity of his innovation. Eli's face, his garage, his truth, finally seen. And somewhere in her penthouse, Clara scrolls through her feed and freezes. The video plays. It's him, the man she wronged. By mid-afternoon, the story explodes. Unknown mechanic builds working clean energy model in his garage. The headlines say, Ely's name trends worldwide. Reporters swarm outside his home. Neighbors cheer, and even rival corporations begin reaching out. But Ely doesn't gloat. He stands in front of the camera once, humbled and nervous, saying only, "I just wanted to fix something that was broken." Across town, Clara watches in silence, her empire trembling beneath the weight of truth. The investors call, demanding explanations. She could deny everything, but something inside her refuses to lie again. Night descends again on the city, but this time, the power in Vaughn Tower feels fragile. Clara stands before her board, surrounded by men who demand denial and damage control. But she's silent, her decision already made. She remembers the way Eli's eyes looked when she took his dream, the way he never begged for recognition. That memory becomes her compass. "Tomorrow," she says firmly, "we tell the truth." The board erupts in protest, but Clara doesn't flinch. The woman who once measured success in zeros now measures it in courage. Alone in her office, she stares out at the city she built and whispers, "He fixed more than the machine. He fixed me." The next morning dawns bright and tense. Vaughn Tower hums with anticipation as reporters crowd the plaza. Clara hasn't spoken publicly since the scandal broke. Inside, she stands before the mirror, tying her hair back with trembling hands. The press conference has been prepared, but her team doesn't know what she plans to say. Across town, Eli watches the broadcast set up on TV, unaware his name will soon echo through every channel in the world. Lila tugs at his sleeve. "You think she'll tell the truth, Daddy?" He hesitates. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some things are harder to fix than machines. Or, more story may shine so." The press conference begins. Flashbulbs ignite as Clara steps onto the stage, her company's logo projected behind her. Executives watch from the wings, whispering warnings she no longer hears. She begins her speech carefully, reciting the scripted lines about innovation and teamwork. Then she stops. Silence spreads through the room. Her hands tremble as she looks down at the prepared text, then folds it and sets it aside. "I owe you the truth," she says softly. Gasps ripple through the audience. The man who fixed this technology wasn't in this building. He worked alone in a small garage. His name is Eli Carter. Back in his garage, Eli's hand stops midair as he hears his name through the TV. The words don't register at first. Lila gasps, gripping his arm. "Daddy, that's you." The camera pans to Clara on screen, her voice steady but filled with remorse. "He deserves the credit. He changed everything." Eli sinks into his chair, overwhelmed. He never expected this. Not an apology, not recognition, certainly not redemption. His phone begins to buzz nonstop, but he doesn't answer. He just sits in silence, watching as truth finally finds its way home. Moments later, Clara looks directly into the cameras. "If he's watching, I'd like him to join me on this stage." The room erupts in murmurs. Her executives protest, but she doesn't move. Outside, news vans swarm toward Ellis' home. Lila urges him, tears in her eyes. "You have to go." He hesitates, caught between fear and hope. But when he looks at her, the belief shining in her face, he knows. He grabs his worn jacket and walks out the door, into the sunlight, toward the second chance he never thought possible. The auditorium doors open mid-conference. The crowd turns as Eli steps inside, nervous but resolute. His clothes are simple, his expression humble. Clara meets his eyes across the stage. Relief and regret intertwine. She steps down from the podium, microphone in hand, and the room falls silent. "This," she says softly, motioning toward him, "is the man who saved everything." Applause erupts. Not the polished clapping of executives, but the raw sound of truth breaking through walls. Eli doesn't bow. He simply nods once. "I just fix what's broken," he says into the mic, voice trembling. "And today, I think we both did." The morning after the press conference, the world feels different. News stations replay Clara's confession, calling it the most honest moment in corporate history. Eli wakes to a flood of messages, offers, interviews, partnerships, but he ignores them all. Instead, he makes breakfast with Lila, laughing as she burns the toast. The air feels lighter, the silence gentler. Across town, Clara steps into her office for the first time since the confession. The tension is gone. The empire didn't crumble. It evolved. For once, truth didn't destroy. It rebuilt. Both of them, in separate worlds, breathe easier knowing they've chosen what's right over what's easy. Days later, Clara visits Eli's garage, this time not as a CEO, but as a friend. The cameras are gone. The world has moved on. She watches him work quietly, his sleeves rolled up, eyes focused on something new, taking shape. "You didn't have to come," he says without looking up. "I did," she replies softly. "Some things need to be said face to face." She pauses, searching for words that feel small enough for the moment. "I'm sorry." Eli nods, finally meeting her gaze. "You already fixed it," he says with a faint smile. "We both did." The air between them feels like forgiveness, unspoken but complete. A few weeks later, Eli and Clara unveil their joint venture, a non-profit workshop designed to teach underprivileged youth about engineering and sustainable innovation. The media calls it a revolution, but for Eli, it's simpler than that. It's hope made tangible. Lila sits in the front row, clapping wildly as her father speaks. Clara stands beside him, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. They don't talk about money or success. They talk about people. The kind of minds the world ignores until they change it. The applause this time feels real. It's not for power, but for purpose. That evening, the workshop is quiet again. Eli walks through the empty space, the sound of his footsteps echoing off metal walls. He runs his hand along a row of workbenches, each one ready for a new dream to begin. Clara joins him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Do you ever miss the garage?" she asks. Eli smiles. "It's all still here," he says, tapping his chest. "Just bigger now." Outside, the city hums, not distant or indifferent anymore, but connected. For the first time, Eli doesn't feel small beneath it. He feels seen. He feels enough. Later that night, Eli and Lila sit outside their new home on a quiet hill overlooking the city. The stars shimmer faintly above, and the distant skyline glows softly. Lila leans against him, whispering, "You really did fix everything, huh?" He chuckles. "Not everything," he says gently, "but enough." She closes her eyes, and he looks out over the horizon, the world vast and open before them. Somewhere in that glow, Clara sits by her window, watching the same sky. 2 people from different worlds, forever connected by one truth: the power to repair isn't just in machines. It's in the human heart.